Good evening and welcome to Season 3 of Wheel to Wheel GT4 Racing, courtesy of Simsport Racing International. I'm your host, SSRI Ambassador Sam Pierce. Last season only finished a few months ago at the end of November, but what a season it was. We had epic battles up and down the grid, a tightly contested AM class, and an absolute masterclass in season dominance in the form of our pro champion, Andrew Richardson. Now, this new season is shaping up to be just as exciting. We have a number of new faces to the championship, as well as a slightly tweaked race format. A few notable drivers are also missing from the championship this season, which leaves the door open for some new names to grace the podiums over the next 7 races. So tonight, we kick things off at the famous Hungaroring, just outside Budapest in Hungary. Purpose-built in the late 80s, this 2.7-mile track has earned the rather dubious nickname of Monaco without the buildings, due to its twisty and bumpy nature. Overtaking tends to be a little bit difficult around here, so track position is going to be absolutely everything, and it's going to be really, really critical during qualifying. So joining me in the commentary booth, as always, is my GT4 partner in crime, Ryan Walker. Ryan, welcome to a brand new season of GT4 Racing. So what are you most looking forward to in this new Season 3?
Even Sam, it's good to be back, and really enjoyed last season. It was a good racing throughout last season, and I think this season's looking to be even more exciting and a lot more closer, judging by some of the new names we've got in the series. I think this season's going to be another close one as well, and I think the Hungaroring tonight, like you mentioned, there's not really many passing opportunities, but yeah, it's one of those. I don't know why. It's just one of those tracks I always enjoy lapping around because it's kind of got that nice flowing feel to it. It's got that middle sector as well. It's nice and technical, and I think it's just one of those tracks I could lap around all day. And I think it provides great racing. And I think with these GT4 cars tonight as well, it's going to be a good one. And looking forward to this season.
Yeah, so speaking of the season, let's take a quick look at what the season holds for us over. Tracks there, lots of very, very different types of tracks that we've got coming. I mean, and as you were saying, we've got the nice flowing, technical, difficult to pass of Hungaroring, but then we head to the really, really tight, twisty, old school British track of Oulton Park for next round. So very, very, very mixed bag for the tracks this season.
Yeah, absolutely is, and I think there's a couple of tracks caught my eye there. One that you mentioned, Oulton Park, because it's kind of Oulton Park. It probably sounds a bit cliche or cheesy, but Oulton Park is kind of like a British a baby brother to the Lord's life, if you like, because it's tight, not technical, but it's tight and it's really difficult to pass in places. But if you get it wrong, there's really not anywhere you can go apart from into the wall. And Laguna Seca as well. That's going to be a good race as well, I feel, because it's sort of a fast flowing track as well. But you've got that the corkscrew where you can either overshoot the corner and go into the gravel and into the wall, or on the exit of the corkscrew, because of the compression of the exit of the corner, that sometimes it can make the car bottom out and it can spin you around.
Yeah, so and I love the fact that there are, a lot of tracks on this calendar that, you don't regularly see a lot in ACC and, you know, public lobbies and things like that. I can't remember the last time I saw Laguna Seca in a public lobby. Oulton Park and Snetterton tend to be in tracks that for some reason, and a lot of people just, you know, don't like, you know, racing there, but they always seem to throw up really, really great, fantastic races. So yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to the season, and finishing off at Indianapolis. That's going to be fun. So just hearing that we are just coming into qualifying. Got about 15 minutes left in qualifying, so let's head over and see how everything is doing. And surprise, surprise, top of the leaderboard, as we're just starting to see our first couple of lap times come in. Andrew Richardson, not really much of a surprise there, but Leon Hope, one of our new faces this season, currently up in P2, and very, very closely P2, only 700s back in the Audi.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. Yeah, quite a few familiar names back this season, and also looking at one of them at the moment, Aaron Walker. One of the people he's feeling brave again, and opting to go with basically pretty much the KTM, I believe, and he always got good results with that car last season from the times we watched him, and I think it's one of those cars that it might not be the quickest car, but it seems to be, or Adam seemed to get really great results with it last season. I think he could be one of those people to watch out for in the championship this season, along with a few other familiar names that are back. The likes of them as maybe a certain Baz Van Melis.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the KTM, and Aaron being then the only driver taking the KTM then this season. But it's nice to see a nice different spread of cars. You know, we've got lots of the major manufacturers represented. Interestingly enough, when we've talked about this for the past couple of seasons, with Regan Mitchell taking the Maserati, but Sam Spenkelink deciding to join Regan in the Maserati this year, and as this season as well, as Aaron Walker puts that KTM decidedly up in first place by a good 8/10. So really, really good lap for him, and quite a quick lap as well. Just noticing the lap time of 1:52.2. That is considerably quicker than any of the practice times that we saw in the server over the past fortnight, and pretty much obliterates the real life GT4 lap record around here as well, which was a 1:53.5 in the GT4 spec M4. So very, very quick time there from Aaron.
Absolutely, and they also, like you say, it's good to see a bit of a range, a bit of a mix with different manufacturers being represented this season. As they looking at one of the drivers that's racing the Alpine, Patrick Tractor. So yeah, it's good to see a bit of variety, and the Alpine as well. It doesn't seem to be a car it's used a lot, but it's good to see it being represented tonight with Patrick at the wheel who's coming around the final corner. And yep, I think one of my favourite looking cars. It might not be the quickest, but it's one of my favourite lookings as Patrick pops up into P12.
Yeah, it's nice that you know, we've got this nice spread of cars. You know, in seasons past where we've had grids primarily dominated by the Porsche, but it's nice to see some of the other manufacturers out. As Andrew Richardson, who you may notice is also in a Porsche, and for those of you who, you know, have followed us for a while, you may recognize then the livery. So Andrew Richardson has joined Mod 11 Racing with Bas Van Millis. So we may have a little bit of a challenge in the commentary box trying to tell these two cars apart. exact same paint. The difference is the wing mirrors and the Porsche logo on the rear wing. So Bass is sporting the red mirrors and Richardson is sporting the yellow mirrors. Definitely like to make it a little bit difficult for us, don't they?
Yeah, I was about to say, I think some of the guys from for the Mode 11 team are kind of, I guess, behind the scenes before the season started. They wanted to kind of play with our minds a little bit, and they kind of play a bit of guessing games with us. But yeah, it's good. I said that even before we went live. It's this livery is still one of my favourites on the Porsche. It's just it looks cool. It looks simple. It's nothing too over the top. It's similar to the liveries that they use that some motorsport teams use in real life to do their testing. But yeah, it's good to see Baz back this season, and also good to see him teaming up with a few drivers as well. But Baz is currently down in 15th, and I think backing off slightly as well, not to get held up by the traffic. But as we've still got about coming up for 10.5 minutes left in qualifying, it looks like Aaron Walker's still in pole position, but it looks like Richardson's just got that gap down to about just under half a second.
Yeah, so they're definitely getting close up than the sharp end with Sem putting that Maserati up into P3. And just we look through then the rest of the field. We've got Nick Vargas, also for Mode 11 Racing, but having a little bit of a power slide coming through, and then the Audi not sporting the black and white livery as his other two Mode 11 Racing drivers, but Nick has teamed up with Dennis Workman as the other duo team for Mode 11 Racing. So yeah, we've got a couple of the different teams competing in the team championship for this season as well. So we're just on board with Dan Lenson for Team Rocket, currently sitting in P14, but is currently pin 0.7 of a second up. So this should put him up then the tables quite a bit if he's able to hold on to that time. But it looks like he's invalidated it, unfortunately. So we jump on board with Bass, who's currently 1.2 up on his previous time. He's dropping a little bit of time at the minute, then a little bit of a mistake, but if he's able to maintain this 0.7, it should put him up then the table considerably as well.
Yeah, but we're talking about invalid laps as well, or that's another thing with this track as well. It's so easy to run wide in some parts of the track, especially in the middle of the last sector, because if you run too wide over those curbs, if you go all four wheels over the curb or even off the track, you won't get an invalidation, and if you go off the track too many times or run wide, you will end up getting a drive-through.
Yeah, definitely something to look out for in the race, especially with this being one of our longer format races, so an hour 10. I mentioned at the top of the program that we have a slight change in the format for our longer races. So there is no longer a mandatory refueling requirement. There is mandatory tires, so people do have to pit. But something that certainly caught me off guard last week in the GT3 race, and I've noticed it in the event configuration for this race as well. Tire allocations. We are only allowed 6 sets of tires for practice, qualifying, and the race. Now this caught me out in the GT3 race. I ended up starting the race with only 1 set of new tires left, so having to go on to old tires during the pit stops. So it's something that drivers are going to have to be mindful of. GT4 cars, obviously, with having a little bit less grip than their GT3 counterparts, they slide a little bit more. You've probably seen quite a number of power slides through corners already. Maintaining tire life is quite important. So if anybody were to make the mistake that I did last week, and forgetting that the game has a tendency of changing tires for you when you pit during qualifying, you can quite easily find yourself without a fresh set of tires to put on, and not a very fun scenario with these GT4s.
Yeah, that's definitely. I've been caught off guard with that, off guard with that as well in the GT3 racing, the sub GT3 leagues I've done, and it's definitely something that adds to the strategy. You don't want to use up your tires too much, because it's basically like you mentioned, if you use up all your tires, you've got to be very careful in the race, especially in the early stages, to look after your tires and not push too much. Otherwise, yeah, being on pretty much the used tires at your pit stop is not, you're pretty much at a disadvantage against other people that have got fresh rubber.
Yeah, it was not fun, and it was not a fun race. But I made it to the end. I survived. That's the main thing. These guys, I have no doubt, are going to do a lot better. But within the mandatory tire change, but no mandatory fueling, and I think it just opens up the possibility of these drivers playing with strategy. I think we're going to see some different strategies from different drivers, because it's open really to pit whenever you feel you need to, as opposed to having to pit halfway through the race. So I think we're going to see a couple of different strategies playing out, and seeing how those different strategies end up working out for drivers, those that decide to pit halfway through the race, others deciding to fuel to the end, and using the pit stop as a way of getting out of traffic potentially. So it's definitely going to make for more interesting racing, off track as well as on track.
Absolutely, and absolutely, that's the thing as well. The Hungaroring, you don't, if you're stuck behind traffic, it's one of, especially in a bad place, or if you're being held up too much, you can around the Hungaroring maybe pit, like you say, pit early, and maybe try and use that to try and get some clear track and jump some people. But on the other hand as well, it's a difficult one. It's if you pit too early, it can backfire and lose you some time, just because maybe some people, once they get clear air as well, they might go quicker and quicker. So it's kind of one of those tracks that sometimes pit early can work, sometimes it can backfire against you. Maybe running longer can work as well, especially if you're in clear air, and gives you a chance to do some push laps to try and build up a bit of a gap. But yep, and Hungaroring as well is one of those rewarding tracks as well. If you nail a lap around here, especially if you nail every corner, you just basically, as Martin Brundle said, when commentating someone's qualifying lap, I think it was back in 2003, when Fernando Alonso got pole position. If you nail every corner around this track, you just keep on winning.
Yeah, I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage. I've not really raced the Hungaroring very often, so it's not one of the tracks that I know very well. But being quite flowing, but then also being, from what I understand, being a very a bumpy track, can make things and quite a bit of a challenge. These GT4s don't have as much downforce as their GTP counterparts, so they're going to be a little bit more susceptible to bumps and undulations in the surface. So yeah, and I think then these drivers have definitely got their work cut out for them, as we just get down into coming up to the final 2 minutes of qualifying, and we still have Aaron Walker in the KTM up in that pole position by 1/10 over Andrew Richardson. So it just goes to show how great a lap time that was. I mean, and Aaron did top then the practice times during the week. And so something that I noticed and found very, very interesting was the amount of laps that Aaron did compared to some of the other drivers in the server. He did a total of 12 laps, 6 of them valid, and was able to put in a 153.1. So, having that level of skill to be able to just jump on a server and within a couple of laps putting in a considerable lap time like that is, I think, just absolutely amazing to be able to pull that off. And and Aaron Walker's pole time, he did very, very early in the qualifying session, so literally able to just pull a lap out of the bag right out of the gate.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing that impressed me the most with Aaron last season is sometimes he didn't have much practice at times, and then basically just jumped in and he's still clicking on the pace straight away. It was just amazing. And unlike me, it probably takes me a good few laps, maybe about probably 10 laps to get on the pace. But some people like Aaron, like we're talking about, can just jump on and be on it straight away. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a completely different league, and it's the reason why we're in the comms box and not on the track. So as we just come into the last 10 seconds of qualifying, most of the cars are back in the pits. We've still got a couple out on track, but just looking down the timing boards, I think Arvin Nam is really then the only one showing a potential improvement. Yannick Valendak is also en route for an improvement, although he's dropping a little bit of time now. Currently 2/10 up on his previous lap time. As we'll just stay with him as he comes out of the final corner. Looks like he might have made a mistake and hasn't improved. And I think that is job done. So that is first qualifying for the brand new season. As we've got a 5-minute countdown for the drivers to get their race setups dialed in and they take comfort breaks and getting ready for the next 70 minutes. Any surprises for you, Ryan, and out of qualifying there?
I'm just having a look through the grid to see if there's anyone that's anyone that surprised me, and I think the person that did surprise me, well, not really surprised me as such, but someone that impressed me in qualifying and good to see him up there on the second row was Sam Spenkelink, who's pretty much a familiar name in the SSRI community, and he's raced in various SSRI series as well, and good to see him up there in his first race, I believe it is, in this season anyway, up there in fourth, and also alongside Richard Pixley. But I think it's all relatively close. And I think trying to predict a winner in this race tonight is going to be difficult. I think if Aaron Walker can get a win at KTM and have a good start and try and build a bit of a gap, I think Andrew Richardson might have a bit of a fight on his hands.
Yeah. I mean that's one of the key things that I'm noticing for this. Aaron Walker taking that pole position definitely sends a message to Richardson that this season may not necessarily go completely his way. Definitely a gauntlet has been thrown. Richard Pixley and up there as well. Richard did quite well in season 2. And then, as you said, seeing Sam Spenkelink in that Maserati, when we've talked about the Maserati numerous times, For those who aren't familiar, this car has no traction control, no ABS, no driver aids whatsoever. So the fact that Sem and Regan Mitchell, are able to perform so well with this car, it just blows my mind. And their level of consistency with it is just absolutely fascinating. But let's take a quick wander through the starting grid for this race, where we've got in a couple of minutes ahead of the formation lap. So on row one, we've got Aaron Walker alongside Andrew Richardson in the Porsche 718 Cayman. Then row two, we've got Richard Pixley and Sam Spenkelink. Then row three, we've got newcomer Leon Hopp alongside Regan Mitchell in the other Maserati. Then in P7, we've got Bas van Millis, and alongside Bas, we've got Nikolai Schroeder in P8 in the Alpine. Then the next row in P9, we've got Sander Vale lining up alongside Frank Hopp, and then Evan Yepvis alongside Dan Lenson. P13, we've got another newcomer, Marco Veronesi. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Marco. Alongside Yannick Valenduk in P14. P15, we've got Nick Vargers lining up alongside Patrick Tractor. Then Nicholas Malott alongside Jan-Paul Eikenelenboom. And then Dennis Workman alongside Wouter Vrins in P20. P21, we've got Mark Neutlings alongside Arvin Nam in our only Camaro out on track tonight. Then in P23, we've got another newcomer, Dylan Barnes, lining up alongside Tim Nybor. And then on the back row, we've got Peter Brockland and Michael Tyler, both also newcomers to the SSRI community. So that is our starting lineup for the race. And as I mentioned, with the no mandatory fueling and the mandatory tire change, does mean that people do have to pit. But I would be very interested to see what levels of fuel people are planning on taking. As we said, track position is quite important around here. So whoever gets into T1 first and is going to be in a commanding position. But fuel is going to play a part in that. So, what's your thoughts on how we think people are going to handle fuel for this race?
Yeah, it's interesting to see what strategy or fuel levels will be. People will go with. I know from the races we called last season, Andrew Richardson was quite famous for pretty much going as long as possible and trying to leave it until the very last day. Well, not the very last second, but pretty much the last 2 or 3 laps, and it seemed to work most of the time. But I don't know. I think if you want to try, if you're up at the front and you want to try and build a bit of a gap, I think taking a full fuel tank might cost you a bit of time, just because the car's so heavy. So I don't know. I wonder if the Aaron Walker's maybe just. If I was maybe Aaron Walker, I would maybe not fuel the car light, but maybe not take a full tank as such. Maybe take half a tank and maybe try and build up that momentum. But if you're Andrew Richardson, I think on the other hand, if you want to try and stay in contention and try and challenge for that win, I think you've kind of got to maybe stick with the same strategy as you did last season. I think it just depends where you start in the field.
Yeah, it's a tough one to call, and I'm just sitting here thinking, well, if I was coming into this race, what would be my strategy? And I'm really not sure, because then as you said, taking full fuel does give you then flexibility as to when you decide to pit, but as you said, it does add a considerable amount of weight to the car, which is also going to have an impact on tire life. So yeah, it's a challenging one. I'm personally, and if it were me, I would go with a little bit over half, and the strategy I tend to go with for a lot of the races that I do is that I will do exactly half plus 10%. So I've got 10% leeway in terms of where I pit. If and I get damaged or get held up or something like that, it gives me a little bit of flexibility. Without taking too much fuel that the weight's going to hinder me in the early stages. But these drivers, obviously, quite a few of the guys up at the top, far more experienced racers than we are. So they're definitely going to be interesting to see how that pans out, and definitely something to keep an eye on throughout the rest of the race. As we just come up to the final corner, cars now getting all lined up side by side. As we come round down onto the main straight, and this I got premature there. Now we are green, and brand new season 3 of GT4 racing on SSRI has started, and looks like Aaron Walker laid a little bit of side by side where Richardson did give him a run for his money, but Aaron has come into that turn 1 in the lead. Looking back down then the grid, it looks like everybody has managed to make it through then that tight turn 1 all intact. Just seen a little bit of yellow flashing up in the background, but relatively temporary. But looks like we've got a relatively clean start to the race, which is always really good to see. And Aaron, it looks like he's already starting to build up a little bit of a gap. That gap already up to nearly a second, so quite impressive from Aaron at the start of this race, potentially hinting at possibly a different strategy than Richardson.
Yeah, quite possibly, and I think Richardson as well made a little bit of a mistake, just got sideways, and it allowed Aaron to just pull away, build a bit of a gap. But further back in the field, it's all that's impact, and everyone's getting eager to try and make some moves, and maybe try and get some track position before the pit stop. As someone went a little bit wide there in the background, as it looks like one of the Wildfine racing cars pretty much getting swamped at the moment, and it looks like it's Tafis at the moment. It's getting a bit swamped.
Yeah, and Evan Yatfis in our sole Wild Things racing car, flying the flag for Wild Things. Unfortunately, team owner Denise Pope unable to join the championship this season. But Evan looks like he's doing a great job so far. But a little bit of a send from I believe that was Dan Lunson, and looks like it's caused a little bit of a concertina of cars behind, just trying to take avoiding action. But it looks like everyone is still going, and on quick glance, it looks like nobody is too worse for wear, although I've just seen a car off in the background there. I think that's Marco Veronesi, so one of our newcomers in the Aston Martin for VR Motorsport. Of course, still going in at the minute, but he is dropping back quite a number of places. And I think, looking at the damage on the front of that car, I think he may have to go in for an early pit stop, although depending on fuel, he may need to hang it out for a little bit in order to fuel enough to get into the end of the race.
Yeah, quite possibly. As they back up at the front, it's still Aaron Walker leading at the moment for Andy Richardson, and Walker's built up a bit of a gap to round about 1 second at the moment, but Richardson's just doing enough to keep in touch with Richard Pixley from Wild Things Racing. They're not too far behind, and rider on board of Sam Spenkelink as well in the Maserati, and they get a bit close to the Hoppy in front of him, and as they all come across the line to complete another lap, it's in the Maserati as well. It's one of those cars, like you said, they have no ABS, no traction control, so it's pretty much a driver's car, but you've got to be very, very smooth and not be aggressive with that right foot. It looks like was there someone off to the left-hand side there?
Yeah, it looked like somebody had pulled off to the side and then disappeared. So I think we might have maybe had a technical failure where they haven't jumped back to the pit. So I think they've left and they're out of the server. So potentially a serious hardware failure there, which is a shame. Not too sure offhand who it was. Might need to look into that. But as we stay on board with Sam Spenkelink, currently 0.4 behind Leon Hope, one of our newcomers to SSRI in the Audi R8. Just doing a good job of defending from Sam. Some very experienced driver, more than likely is going to just kind of keep the pressure on and hope that Leon makes a mistake.
Indeed, as Seb closes right up on the braking, and I think it's the only downside of this with the Maserati as well. In a straight line, or it might just be the Audi, but in a straight line, the Audi just seems to be the slightly quicker car as they come round the final corner now. And Seb as well closes again on the braking, but just needs to try and get a good run on the exit. And looks like he's got a good exit, but I don't think he's going to be close enough as both of these cars head down to turn 1.
Yeah, I've got a feeling that this battle is going to be one that's going to be brewing for a good part of this race. So certainly until we get close to some of the scheduled pit stop times. Obviously, we don't have any pit window, so people can pit whenever they need to or want to. But you'd expect to start seeing some pits coming at about the halfway mark or thereabouts. But looking a little bit further down than the order, Bas van Millis giving Frank Hopp something to think about with only 0.2 of a second back. Definitely keeping that black and white Porsche looming large in Frank's mirrors, keeping the pressure on. This is something that Bas is absolutely brilliant at. I've had first-time experience of trying to defend from Mas during the 24-hour charity race at Spa a couple of years ago, and Bas is just brilliant at wearing you down and getting you to make a mistake. So this is probably going to be another battle that's going to continue for quite some time.
Indeed, as Baz closes up on the braking and further back up to the front, look at it. Looks like Sense definitely closed up to the back of Hoppy, and he needs to try and get a good exit here, try and get back on the power rail if he can, and try and carry that speed on the exit. And it looks like he's done that, and as I come across the line now, and again that Audi in a straight line just seems to pull away ever so slightly.
I'm just seeing in the chat, Richard Pixley has suddenly turned up in the chat, so I'm wondering if it was Richard that we saw often to the side and suddenly disconnected. So we're just asking in the chat what potentially happened there, but I think that has answered the question of who that car that was that we saw off to the side there.
Yeah, and Richard Pixley just posted in the chat that his game crashed, so that's so unfortunate. That
is painful. It's such a shame. Richard, so sorry to hear There's nothing worse. You put in, loads of practice, you have a good start, and something completely and totally beyond your control, either game related, hardware related, so something like that, just, comes out of the woodwork to ruin your race. Such a shame. I've had it happen to me. Screens went black in the middle of qualifying at a race at Snetterton, actually. Thankfully, I didn't destroy anybody in the process, but yeah, it's not fun when something completely and utterly out of your control like that happens. But it's good to see that he was off to the side when that game crash happened. So thankfully, it didn't impact on anyone else, as we are back on board with Sam Spankelik. Just continually keeping the pressure on Leon Hopp. That gap 0.3 of a second now. This is going to be a battle that's going to be going on for a while. Definitely. Then these two drivers and cars seem to be quite evenly matched. This is the first time that we're seeing Leon Hopp. So we don't really have an idea on his background or anything like that, how experienced he is, but definitely been showing a good level of skill, so keeping Sam back in that P4 position.
Indeed, and I think this could be a battle. It could be sorted out in the pit stop. I think Sam, if he still can't get by Hoppy before the pit stop, I think it might be worth depending on if he gets held up by the traffic. If they come up to any lapped cars that they're coming up to lap, I think it could be worth Sam maybe diving into the pits just so he doesn't lose too much time, and maybe try and use that to the advantage to try and leapfrog Hoppy in front of him and maybe try and gain that third position. But look who's joined this battle now is another Maserati driver in the shape of Regan Mitchell.
Yeah, I was just saying that. So Regan just slowly closing up that gap to Sam. Obviously, when with Sam concentrating on the battle with Leon, they're both losing a bit of time. The gap to Richardson now up to 4 seconds. So fighting this fight for P3 is slowing them down and putting them back into the clutches of Regan Mitchell. So this is going to become a three-way battle, I think, quite soon. And speaking of three-way battles, I think we've potentially got a four-way battle for P11 with Nicholas Malott defending against Evan Networth, Nick Vargas and Jan-Paul Eichenboom, all battling over those mid-pack places. We can see the grid starting to break off into little packs of fights. So it's definitely going to keep us on our toes, and then the commentary box keeping up with all of the battles that we've got going on up and down the order. But this gap between P11 down to P14 is only about one and a half seconds between the four of them. So some nice, good, clean, tight racing happening in the mid-pack. And looking a little bit further down than the order, Marco Baronossi putting a bit of pressure on Michael Tyler for P23. There's currently a 0.5 of second gap there as well.
Indeed, and this is the thing with these GT4 cars as well, that they've still got a downforce on the cars, but not as much aerodynamic downforce as you would get maybe on a GT3 car, where you can pretty much carry loads of speed. It's more down to the driver to try and wrestle it and try and go as quick as possible. You don't really have to rely on or you can't really rely on ABS or traction control. You can a little bit, but it's half down to the car and the other half's down to the driver to try and basically go as quick as possible. But this battle up at the front for third, fourth, and fifth is still going at the moment, and still Sam cannot get by. And I think if I'm Sam or even Regan, as Sam runs wide ever so slightly, just outbreaks himself, and that's going to allow him to be under attack from the Regan Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, then these two drivers, they may very well be in the same car, but as far as I'm aware, they are not teammates. So there's going to be, no quarter given, and they're certainly going to fight tooth and nail. And then I think you're right. I think that this is going to come down to either somebody making a mistake or one of these drivers attempting to do something a little bit different with the pit stops, potentially trying an undercut or an overcut, just to try and get out of this traffic, because they're continually losing time to the leaders and up front. That gap to P2 now up to 3.5 seconds. 4.5 seconds. So fighting them amongst themselves, they are starting to drop time to the leaders, but considerable gap between Regan Mitchell down to P6. So these drivers can be content to fight amongst themselves for the minute at least, and not have to worry about any pressure coming up from behind in the form of Nikolai Schroeder, who's currently quite a gap behind. As you can see, it's pretty much the entire start-finish straight.
Indeed, this battle's still close together, and this one's even closer as well, with the 12th, 13th, 14th, and it looks like 15th as well, all close together. And the field's spread out relatively as well, so it looks like it's kind of split up with a sort of a pack up at the front, and also this pack further back in the field, just outside the top 10. So I think I think it's nothing really to separate these cars, and this is the thing I love with these GT4 cars as well. It's excuse me, it's always close racing, and the GT4 cars are not really. They're not really it doesn't really come down to the BOP like you would normally get with the GT3 cars. It's more just all the cars are relatively close. It looks like Vargas might have just ran wide ever so slightly there.
Yep, it looks like Evan Yep has got a little bit of a run on the Audi of Nick Vargas, but doesn't manage to get close enough to make a move. But then this battle started out as just being a three-car battle, and obviously when we've got Patrick Tractor and Dan Lenson kind of joining up to the back of this pack to make it a five-car battle for the mid-grid positions, and from Nick Vargas back to Dan Lenson. Then that gap, just under a second and a half between the five of them. So it does introduce the possibility that if one of the lead cars in this pack makes a mistake, it can be very, very costly, because then all of a sudden, with the cars being tightly bunched like this, you can end up losing quite a number of places where it could have just been one or two. With the pack being a little bit further spread out. So Patrick Tractor just having a little bit of a look up the inside, but not close enough to make a concerted move. So we head back up to this front battle between Leon Hope, Sam Spenkelik, and Regan Mitchell. Although Regan looks like he's dropped back just a little bit now. That gap now being 0.6. Sam Spenkelik still keeping the pressure on Leon Hope. And Leon not cracking yet, so managed to keep his cool, keeping calm and collected, and just driving in his race. As I think this is potentially the closest that Sam has been. forcing Leon to go a little bit defensive into that corner there. And could potentially, if Sam gets a good run out of the final corner, might be in a position to have a go at Leon coming into turn one. If he's if he makes sure to keep one eye on Regan Mitchell as well, so he closed up that gap pretty quickly.
Indeed, and I was going to say as well, Sam, like you were saying, maybe trying to take a wider entry into the final corner, maybe try and square the corner off and try and carry that momentum and get a run down the straight. But I think he did try and do that, but on the previous lap. But I think he just tried to get back in the power. He might have just got a little bit sideways in, and that cost him a bit of cost him to get a run in the exit there, and it's gave Leon a bit of breathing space for the moment.
I've just noticed that Dan Lenson from the back of that five car pack that we were looking at in the midfield has decided to pit, and I've just spotted Jan Paul Eichenboom got a drive-through penalty. So we are 20 minutes into the race. And we already have a drive-through, and then I would assume that drive-through is for track limits infringements. So quite painful to get that sort of penalty this early on in the race. Jan's going to have considerable work cut out for him to try and come back from that.
Yes, excuse me. Yeah, especially such a track such as the Hungaroring, where a drive-through penalty right here can cost you big time. And this battle as well, it looks like he started to get a lot more closer than it has been in previous laps. And I think Leon's starting to feel the pressure now as well. And Sam definitely closes up on the braking and he gets a great exit here, and manages to carry that momentum. But he's just not close enough. As you can see, the Audi just pulls away again in a straight line ever so slightly, and it's just Sam's trying everything to try and get by, but doesn't want to do any silly moves or take any silly risks. And it's just I think this could be, if I was Sam, it's maybe worth diving into the pits.
I think it's potentially a little early, although then the fact that Dan Lenson has pitted, definitely worth keeping an eye on how Dan does in the coming laps when we start to see more people starting to pit, especially how he relates to that previous 5-car pack that we had of Nick Vargas, Evan Yepis, and Patrick Tractor, how he relates to those drivers once they've served their pit stops. Obviously, with going back to the issue with Jan-Paul Eichenboom and this drive-through penalty, it does mean that he's going to have to venture into the pits twice, because that drive-through penalty is not going to count to his mandatory pit stop. You cannot do a pit stop during a drive-through while you're serving a drive-through penalty. So Jan Paul is going to have to come into the pits later on in the race to clear his mandatory pit stop requirement. So bit of a painful day for Jan Paul so far in this first race of the season.
As this battle comes up to the final corner, and yet again, and Sam keeps getting close enough, and they getting a good exit. It's just can't really do anything. He can't get close enough to make a move into turn one, and I think Leon, on the other hand, as well, is doing a great defensive job.
Yeah, this is the first time that when we've seen Leon in this series, and yeah, so far proving himself to be a very, very confident, cool-headed driver. And just noticed that he's with the Grid Finder Racing. So it'd be interesting to find out a little bit more about Leon. Hopefully, if he does manage to hang on to this P3 position, and we can have a chat with him post race, and you know, just find out a little bit more about him, and what his experiences are coming into this race. Looking back down at that mid-pack fight that was going on, it's kind of settled down a little bit, but when we've still got quite a close battle between Evan Yepes and Patrick Tractor for P13. Nick Vargas just managed to pull away from Evan a little bit, pulled out about a 9/10 gap back to the Wild Things Racing driver. But Patrick Tractor and then the Alpine certainly giving that Aston Martin something to think about and consider, and keeping Evan quite busy.
Yeah, indeed. Evan's under a bit of attack as well from Patrick, and it's still good to see a Wild Things Racing car out on track. It was unfortunate about Evan's teammate having that game crash issue, but as Evan runs a little bit wide, as I say that, Evan dives into the pits, and a couple of other cars in front of him decide to dive into the pits as well. So I think maybe these cars have decided that they don't want to fight too much on track and lose time, and it's maybe just worth diving into the pits.
Yeah, so it's all three of them deciding to come in together. So Nicholas Malott, Nick Vargas, and then Evan Yepes. So this will be very, very interesting to keep an eye on and see where they come out in relation to Dan Lunson, who was fighting with these three drivers before he pitted about 2-3 laps ago. So I think then this will be quite telling as to how the strategy plays out for Dan now. And obviously then the downside of the strategy, even if he does end up in front and at the minute, once Malott, Wagners and Yepes come out of the pits, he is going to be on much older tires, so he may struggle come the end of the race.
There's what's Dan Lenson coming across the line, and I think Dan will be frustrated slightly with that drive-through penalty, and especially such an easy thing to do around here, getting an off track or too many off tracks, and they get a drive-through. But it looks like because I can blame is tried to make a move for it, or basically is under attack from the Nicholas Malott.
Yeah, then this is going to be very, very tight coming into this corner. But you know, looking at it from Jan-Palm Eichenboom's position, and there's just a little bit of a tap in the back corner, but Eichenboom has let off and lets. My apologies. So we're actually on board with then Evan Yepes and Nicholas Malott. My apologies there. So Nicholas just touching then the back end of Evan Yepes' car there, but does the right thing when waits for Evan to get the car straightened out and go for then the fight again. So it's definitely coming into a close battle between these three cars as they almost pull it 3 wide. Into turn 12 there, and it looks like going into then the pits together has not broken up then this fight at all. So it could very well have been that these guys were just keeping an eye out on what the other driver does and just follow the leader to prevent potentially that undercut or overcut from working.
Indeed, I think, yeah, I think if you're up at the front and you want to try the you pretty much, if you're up at the front, you want to try and stay out as long as possible, and they basically try and leave it as late as possible. But yeah, this battle for third place is still going on, and Seb is definitely getting a lot closer to Leon now. And this, it's just a matter of being close enough, but not being able to try and pull the move off. And Regan Mitchell's just fallen back slightly, but I wonder if Regan's maybe just fallen back slightly, just maybe trying to look after his tyres, and just doesn't want to try and use them up by pushing and trying to keep up with his battle. So maybe just drop that ever so slightly. But it looks like Sam just wants to try and get by. He just can't get the move done. And Hungary is the Hungaroring rather is just it's a difficult track to pass on because there's not really many passing opportunities unless the car in front of you makes a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that Sam is going to have to be mindful of is potentially just keeping his own cool. I mean, and Leon Hop's been doing very, very well to stay calm under pressure, but Sam is going to need to keep a level head as well and not get frustrated at trying to overtake and not getting the job done. So you're right. It's quite possible that Regan is taking that that viewpoint as well and dropping back a little bit just to give himself a bit of a break and potentially try again a little bit later, as when we're just on board with Jan Ballenduck at the minute in P8, fighting with Frank Hopp, and obviously he's got Bas van Mellis looming in his mirrors as well. So then this fight currently for P7, 8, and P9. So Bas only 0.3 of a second behind, and then 0.6 of a second between Ballenduck and Frank Hopp in that P7 position with the Dukes of Janus BMW.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, good to see the. I think is Yannick using the same livery, the Dukes of Hazzard's livery. I remember him using it last season, and yeah.
Yeah, so it's not quite the Dukes of Hazzard, but definitely a tip of the hat towards it with the team name of the Duke of Janus. And I think you're right. I think last season he did have a lot more of a Dukes of Hazzard style livery, and I seem to remember I think he did actually take the Camaro as well. But the BMW M4 GT4 car still got that quite imposing body shape, so I think it can still pull off the Duke's orange quite well. Quite a striking color. I'm just looking down the order. Dan Lanson has pulled up onto the back of Evan Yepes. That gap now 0.2 of a second. So Dan Lanson he pitted very, very early, and unfortunately still came out behind the pack of cars that he was fighting with earlier. But is still fighting quite hard for that position down in P21 and P22. But then this fight with I'm giving our cameraman a little bit of a run for his money, trying to get in between the various different fights that we've got going on. And then this is what can be challenging for us commentators, especially with really close racing like this. Sometimes you just don't know where to look. Then there are battles up and down the grid. We want to make sure that we bring you the closest racing, regardless of whether it's at the front or the back of the pack. But yeah, when we're on board with this battle with Evan Yepes, and Dan Lanson getting up and alongside, he's gonna have the inside for the corner, but and Evan Yetvis hanging it around the outside has managed to hang on to the position so far, but I don't think he's going to be able to hang it around the outside here, so I think he's going to have to... Nope, doesn't decide to concede, makes me eat my words, and keeps the position. So really, really great, clean racing between these two drivers. Excellent and to see. As Evan Yetvis keeps a hold of that P21 position. But I've got no doubt that Dan Lenson gonna collect his thoughts, and I think, and then is definitely going to give it another attempt.
Indeed, yeah. I thought a move was going to be made in the previous lap, but yeah, looks like Evan is not one for giving up, and I wonder as well if Evan just took fuel only at his stop.
No, so tires are mandatory, so he has to have
tires are mandatory.
It's a question of whether he took any fuel with those tires or not. But from what I understand, it's not going to make any difference in pit stop time. So tires are a standard 30-second stationary time, and then the pit stops. So fuel, in effect, in terms of timing anyway, is free. I've just noticed Aaron Walker has done his pit stop. So Aaron coming out from his pit stop into P9 puts then Andrew Richardson into the lead of this race. But before Aaron came into the pits, he had managed to pull quite a gap on Andrew Richardson. But Richardson now in relatively clean air, although he is going to start coming up to lap traffic. So he's going to have a job cut out for him to try and and overcut Aaron and try and make some of that time up. But then Aaron down in P11, as we see. So that looks like Leon Hop just pulling into the pits. Yes, it is. So that releases Sem Spankelink and Regan decides to jump into the pits as well. So Sem stays out, but Leon and Regan Mitchell both pit. So this is where we're going to start seeing strategy starting to play out when we're pretty much bang on the halfway mark of the race. So I think this is where it's going to start getting interesting, and also quite challenging for us to keep ahead of what is going on and where cars are coming out in relation to where they were before they went into the pits.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised with Andrew Richardson. I thought he would have dived into the pit straight away and tried to maybe try to cover off the Aaron Walker, but I think I wonder if Andrew's maybe thinking of trying to go as low as possible and see if he can maybe try and just stretch out a bit of a gap before his pit stop and try and maybe try and take advantage of Aaron, maybe getting held up by slower cars possibly.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Andrew Richardson do this in many a previous race of fueling for pretty much the entire race and giving him the freedom to take tires whenever he needs. Now, this could very well be Richardson thinking, let's have the freshest tires for the end, and see if we can make the move on track. Just by the very nature of having fresher tires. But as we say that, Andrew Richardson now dives into the pits. Sem stays out, interestingly enough. So it'll be interesting to see where Richardson comes out in relation to Aaron. I'm pretty sure he's still going to be behind Aaron, but it'll be a question of whether he's managed to bring that gap down at all. I didn't see that Andrew got caught up in too much traffic in those couple of laps. So it'll be interesting to see if he's managed to pull in some good lap times. But Sam Spenkling still staying out. It looks like he's starting to struggle for grip a little bit. He's had a couple of wide moments while we've been on board with him. Just starting to, yeah. So that car's starting to look a little bit more of a handful than it was before. So we go on board with Patrick Tractor. Has pitted, so is in position in relation to the cars around him, with Dan Lenson up in front, just ahead by about 0.4 of a second. Now, just looking down then the orders with the pit stops, it's kind of spread the field out a little bit, just trying to keep an eye on where then the battles are for you. But as when just come on board with Aaron Walker. So Richardson has come out behind, and that gap being for about 9 seconds. So it looks like, and Andrew is at this stage looks like he's actually lost a bit of time to Aaron. So Aaron looks to be in quite a strong position for the rest of this race. I'm not going to say too much more because I don't want to bring about any sort of commentator cursing, which I was quite notorious for last season, as I just noticed by Bas van Miller starting to come in for his pit stop as well. So we're just at the 30 minutes stage left in this race, and I do believe that there's only 3 cars still left to pit, Sem being one of them. So currently sitting in P1. My guess is that at the minute that's probably a net P4 would be my guess, looking at then the cars around. But interesting to see when Sem decides to pit. It looks like the majority of the grid going for that strategy of pitting halfway. But as we're watching Sem, that car looking a lot more of a handful, a lot more difficult to control. Be interested to know what his how many track warnings he's on at the minute as well.
Yep. So yeah, that's it. Looks like Sam's up into the lead, and I think I wonder. Excuse me. I wonder if Sam's maybe trying to go as low as possible. Maybe try and use a bit of an Andy Richardson strategy, and maybe try and leapfrog Lear Hoppy and Regan Mitchell quite possibly. But further back, this battle for 14th, 15th, and 16th is going on at the moment, and it looks like it's pretty much this battle that was going on before the pit stops is pretty much just about to resume once the others in front of these guys make the pit stop.
Yeah, so then these were the 3 cars that pitted together, and as a result of pretty much then the 2 cars behind of Evan and Dan Lenson just kind of following the leader into the pits, they've managed to keep this battle going throughout then pit stops. Sorry, just been reminded that Dan did pit earlier than Nicholas and Evan. But so it's interesting to see that despite pitting earlier, that Dan is still back up onto the back of this battle again. As we see another drive-through penalty popping up for car 2 and 3 of Router Prince. again, probably for track limits. So expect to see a few more of these starting to pop up now that we're getting towards the latter stages of this race. And as tires start to wear away, I think we're going to see a little bit more, especially as fatigue starts to set in. As Sem looks like he is now coming in, bringing that Dark Sky Racing Maserati into the pits for his pit stop, hanging it out a little bit longer, but still making sure that he's going to get good life out of those tires. So it'll be interesting to see where Sem comes out in relation to Leon and Regan Mitchell, who he was fighting with before. And we're just on board with Leon at the minute, and he's just coming into turn 13. And Sem looks to still be stationary in his pit stop, so I think Regan might get this as well. Yep, and he does. So Sem looks like he's lost out quite a bit by extending his stint a little bit too long, and he's come out behind Regan.
Yeah, I'm very surprised that Sem never dived into the pit straight away after Regan and Leon pitted, because if I was Sem, I would have pitted the next lap and tried to cover them off. But I think Sem just got a little bit longer. It's pretty much cost him. But I think I wonder if Sem might be able to catch back up to his battle in front of him, and it looks like Leon is well. Oh, I was about to say Leon was in front of Regan at the moment, but I think Leon's back up in third, and obviously Regan's got a car in front of him. It still needs to pit, so I think once this car in front of Regan pits, that'll be the positions will pretty much be back to what they were before, apart from Sem falling from third down to pretty much net 5th place. But I have to say Leon's been doing a good job at the moment. He's just been doing his thing and not letting the pressure get to him, and especially in the first stint where he was under pressure from Sem or also Regan as well. So it looks like the pit stops, the big winner from that in this battle for third place has been Leon.
Yeah, he's kept a level head. He's not bowed to pressure, not made any mistakes. But yeah, Sem has lost out quite considerably in that pit stop. Not only losing the place to Regan Mitchell, but having quite a considerable coming out with quite a considerable gap to Regan. Then the gap between Regan and Sem, it's about 4 seconds. So then hanging that pit stop out to a lot later in the race, possibly not then the best decision, but of course really only know that in hindsight. As we come back on board with Dan Lenson, somebody who did decide to pit a lot earlier than the majority of the grid, and this has ended up being quite a good decision for him. Just noticed that Evan Netvis has at some point managed to get the move done on Nicholas Malott. So Dan now coming up to the back of the fellow Porsche. So Evan Yepnes up into P14, then Nicholas Malott in 15, and Dan Lenson close behind. So this battle, once again, when resuming with that 3-car battle that we saw right from the beginning of the race between Evan, Nicholas, and Dan Lenson.
Indeed, excuse me, indeed, as they further back up the field, looking at Dallin Barnes, currently in 5th place, but not too far behind him is Sam Svenkelink, who's made his pit stop, but Dallin still needs to make his pit stop, so that once Dallin dives into the pits, that'll be Sam back up into 5th place, and I think Sam wants to try and get by as quickly as possible, but he doesn't want to do anything too hasty, as it looks like Dylan is diving into the pits.
Yeah, so he is our final pit stop of the race, and obviously Dylan being on a completely different strategy, there was no need for him to be battling with Sam at all. Does then the right thing, dives into then the pits, and Sam released in to try and make up some of the ground that he's lost to Regan Mitchell. Now that we that car of Barnes and out of the way, we can now see that gap is indeed 2.1 seconds back to Regan Mitchell. So very, very costly, I think, for Sam deciding to leave that pit stop potentially a little bit late. But and always the benefit of sitting in the commentary box, getting the bird's eye view on these races. It's quite easy for us to look and say, yep, should have done that, shouldn't have done that. But very, very different story when you're behind the wheel.
Yeah, indeed, and I think it's always better to be sensible and pick your battles. But looking at Frank Hopp as well at the moment in 10th place, chasing down Sander Vale in front of him, and yeah, I have to say, for the first round this season has been. It's not been as chaotic as I thought it would be, but it's been great racing throughout the field, and I think it's a good indicator of what to expect this season. And I think there's some people up at the front that'll be in contention or thereabouts, challenging for the championship. I feel, and saying you've got the likes of the usual suspects of Aaron Walker and Andrew Richardson. And I think if he can keep his pace and keep up the pace that he's doing, or keep up the job that he's doing, I think Hoppe up at the front could be there in contention, or could do well in the championship. The same with Regan Mitchell and the likes of Sven Svenklink. I think there could be a few surprises as well along the way during the season.
Yeah, and I definitely think that and Andrew Richardson is not going to have quite as easy a time as he did last season. I think he's going to have a lot more of a challenge. And obviously with the likes of Aaron Walker and Regan Mitchell, but then this newcomer Leon Hope, he's proved to be a very, very competent, level-headed driver, and able to keep his cool under pressure. So be interesting to see how he fares through the rest of the season. As we jump on board with Tim Nybor for the GT Marks Racing team, currently put forward a second behind Arwen Nam in the Chevrolet, and definitely keeping the pressure on Arwen. Just coming up to the end of Sector 1. That gap now 0.3 of a second. Tim definitely keeping the pressure on here.
Yeah, indeed, and Tim Nybor, a name that raced in the GT3 series last season, and good to see him in the GT4s this season as well, as he tries to make a move heading up to the chicane. But I don't think there's not really anything he can do, because it's not really a corner that he can make a move on unless you're feeling a bit brave or alongside someone. But at the moment, it looks like Tim's just playing a bit of a waiting game, as they've still got about pretty much 17 minutes left in this race, so plenty of time to try and make a move. But I think Tim's just, I think he might, if he gets a good run onto the home straight, I think he might be able to get the move done.
Yep, as we jump on board with Sam, he's managed to bring that gap down from Regan Mitchell. He's managed to claw back all of that time. Obviously, the benefit of being on fresher tyres, being able to to push and possibly a little bit harder than Regan. So that gap was 2.5 seconds, now down to 0.4. So back to a close battle between these two drivers, but obviously then the roles now run reversed, and Sam trying to get that P4 position back.
Indeed, yeah, Sam's done a good job to close his gap down. They close his gap down to Regan Mitchell in front of him, and I think while these guys, it's Regan Mitchell gets a bit sideways there in the middle of the corner there and just manages to hold it, and I think I think Regan's feeling the pressure. I thought Regan, when he made his pit stop, I thought he would have closed that gap down to Lear Hope in front of him, but I think he maybe just doesn't have the pace to catch back up, and I think Sam's maybe been looking after his tyres as well. Especially after the pit stop, or pretty much pushing after the pit stop, I should say. But as lap traffic gets out of the way, it looks like Sam might have a run heading down the home straight, and I don't know if he's going to be close enough to make a move to turn one. It's getting closer and closer, as I think he might try and. I thought he was going to go for a move there, but Sam decides to back out and not do anything too hasty.
Yeah, and then this, when we might have questioned it at the beginning, but this might have been Sam's plan all along. He's now got 4 or 5 lap newer tires than Regan. With only 15 minutes left in the race, he can push this car a lot harder than Regan can. Obviously, the one thing that we don't know is what track limit warnings both of these drivers are on. But Sam potentially in a stronger position here with the newer tires, able to push that Maserati a little bit harder and not need to worry maybe quite so much about sliding the car around, trying to get the move done and keep the pressure on Regan, in the hopes of potentially pressuring Regan into making a mistake.
Indeed, Seb gets a great run and they just close enough, but just can't make a move. Pulls out again to try and distract Regan into it, try and force Regan into a mistake. But again, just Regan doing a good defensive job, and Seb I think if Seb can try and get a good exit in the final corner, he might be able to try and carry that momentum down the home straight. But again, he's just close enough, and if I was him, I would maybe try and take a wide entry and maybe try and square the corner off. Actually, as I say that, Sam gets a great run, and it looks like Sam might be making a move into turn one, but Regan Mitchell, as soon as he sees that, goes defensive, and there's a bit of bump draft in there. I don't think that was intentional, but I think Sam tries to make a move, and just not close enough, close enough, but just can't get the move done. As a bit of a slight bit of contact.
Then excellent driving from the two of these guys. By both Sam and Regan, they're both highly experienced drivers, both in the same cars and as well. So each will be fully aware of the strengths and weaknesses of the other car and around them. This I think is going to make for a very, very interesting finish to this race. But you can see Sam pushing that car to then the limit, having to correct a little bit of a snap oversteer there in the middle of the corner. But Sam doing everything he can, and definitely making this a very, very interesting finish to the race.
Absolutely, and I think at this stage of the race, I don't know if Regan's maybe struggling with something. Maybe his tyre pressures have started dropping off, or maybe just Sam seems to have that bit more pace at the moment. But at this stage of the race, it looks like Sam's trying everything to try and get by Regan. As Regan makes a little bit of a mistake, gets a little bit sideways, and just struggling to get the power down there. So it looks like I think the pressure that Sam's putting on is definitely making Regan starting to crack slightly.
Yeah, Regan is definitely we're working hard to keep Sam behind. And this is just absolutely fantastic racing from the two of these drivers. If this carries on like this for the next 12 minutes, I'm just going to be done for. I'm literally edge of my seat watching every single corner, and seeing how close Sem is getting. It looks like he's just giving a little bit of a breather at the minute, but they definitely getting on the brakes a lot later than Regan is, trusting in the grip of those newer tires. So this is going to be a fascinating finish to this race.
Yeah, absolutely is, and I think it's difficult to know difficult to find out where Seb could make a move. I think his only opportunities, I think, is basically probably heading down the home straight, or maybe the if he gets a good run through the fast right hander, he might be able to make a move. But I think Sam wants to make a move, but it's just one of those things. He wants to try and make a move without taking any risks and possibly ruining Regan's race. But it's just one of those things. I think it's going to take a bit of a big mistake from Regan for Sam to get this move done.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a challenge for Semton to get by. As we've been saying that this entire race, this track is difficult for overtaking. There's not many opportunities for passing to happen around here, and then throw into the mix the fact that these cars have less grip, less downforce. And these two cars in particular, having absolutely no driver aids as well, it's just a recipe for ridiculous driving and really, really close racing. So this is going to be fun for the next 10 minutes. But as this is going on, I'm seeing the timing board to my left keep flicking up every now and then. We've got to bear in mind that there are other battles going on track, one of them being between P13, 14 and 15, and I've just noticed that Nicholas Malott, currently in P13, has gotten a drive-through penalty, so that is going to open up that three-car battle that we've been had going on in the midfield since the beginning of this race, as Nicholas does dive into pit lane to serve that drive-through penalty, releases Frank Hopp and Practice Tractor behind, who are fighting tooth and nail between themselves now for that P13 position. Practice Tractor currently 0.3 of a second back, and very, very late on the brakes from Patrick, possibly a bit too late, and overshot the corner, and giving Frank a little bit of breathing room to collect his thoughts. As we come back up the order to Bas van Millis, fighting with Yannick Ballenduck in that bright orange BMW. This battle currently for P7, with Bas 0.5 of a second behind Yannick. And just keeping a little bit of pressure on as we start getting down into these last few minutes of the race, these battles that we've been seeing brewing throughout the course of this hour that we've been racing.
Sorry to interrupt, but I was just watching the battle with Sam Svenkelink and Regan Mitchell, and it looks like they might have had a bit of contact in turn one.
Oh, no.
So yeah, luckily I just caught that as after a bit I was watching Sam Svenkelink's stream point of view. So yeah, sorry if I.
No, that's all right. So yeah, it looks like when we came back on board, it looks like Regan was, or Sam was given the position back to Regan. And any idea what happened previously there? Unfortunately, we don't have any replays this evening due to some technical issues. But does it look like I was reading that right of Sam giving the position back to Regan?
Yeah, it looked like Sam got a run on the exit of the final corner, and I think I don't know if he did, but it looked like Sam was trying to sail a bit of a dummy to Regan and tried to go up the inside, but unfortunately it ended up in contact and Regan got a tapped sideways, but Sam doing the sporting thing decided to give the position back.
Yeah, I mean, then these two drivers, very, very, very experienced and, very respectful drivers. Regan and Sam both have been members of SSRI for, quite a considerable amount of time. Then they're good friends in the Discord chat. So, a lot of respect goes between these two guys. So really, really great to see that respect and extend on track as well. But it does mean that Sam's got his work to do all over again, to try and get the move done, as we're just coming down into the final 6 minutes. When this race definitely going to keep us busy for those last 6 minutes, as timing boards are showing battles up and down the grid coming into the final minutes. Just looking down then the order, Patrick Tractor still keeping the pressure on Frank Hupp for P13. Currently that gap down to 0.4. That gap has been fairly steady for the last few laps, certainly since Nicholas Malott served his drive-through, and unfortunately came out down in P23. So drive-through penalty is quite painful here. It's a relatively slow pit entry because you're taking kind of an awkward angle coming off of or coming into the final corner. One of the other battles that we've got on track is this battle with Bas van Millis and Jellen Vallendup for P7. This gap currently 0.4, coming down every time I look. Currently 0.2 coming into the final sector. But that BMW proving to be quite wide, and yet again very, very difficult for Bas to get a move done. With all of these battles going on track, poor Aaron Walker up there in P1 all by himself, 19-second gap back to Andrew Richardson. He's not really had very much screen time, unfortunately, because he's just been kind of off doing his own thing. As I said, I knew this was going to happen. That at some point during this race, we were going to cut to a shot of either of Andrew's car, and I was going to mistake it for Bass's car. So yes, we are on board with Andrew Richardson. Currently 15 seconds back from Aaron in P1. So not having quite the start to his season that Andrew was hoping for, compared to his commanding and very dominant lead through the season last year. As we come back to this battle with Sam Spankelink, and still trying to get this move done on Regan, keeping the pressure on, but I think Sam is going to have his work cut out. He's only got 2.5 minutes to make that move cleanly, and most importantly to make the move actually stick as well, as we see more drive-through penalties starting to come in. The next unfortunate is P21, Dennis Berkman, in the number 5 Audi, being the latest to fall victim to track limit warnings and getting another drive-through penalty. Sam just gets his nose up in the outside quarter panel of Regan, but it's just not close enough to make it work. And definitely going around the outside is the harder way round.
Yeah, I think Sam might have went to try and go to the outside and maybe try and get a bit of a switchback, but I think Regan was wise to that and kind of parked it on the apex there to try and stop Sam get an undercut or a switchback there. But yeah, great racing between these two. It's been fantastic to watch, and Regan gets a little bit sketchy there, getting on the power, and I think maybe his tyres are starting to cry it off, or it's maybe just feeling that little bit of pressure from Sam there. But as I've got traffic coming up there, that might play a factor.
It might, yeah. As Sam just gets a little bit better of a run, and he is going to get then this move done. Just coming into then the final sector. So Sam Spenkelink has managed to get that P4 position back. So, you know, we weren't too sure here in the comms box, but he just loses the back end just slightly coming out of turn 12, but manages then to keep it together. And yeah, as I was saying, and up here in the comms box, we did question Sam's decision to keep that pit stop quite late, but it looks like it has actually paid off. He had the better tires and was able to get the move done on track. But is it possible that he's potentially pushed them a little bit too far, and he's now struggling a little bit because goes wide and again slides out and is now back under pressure from Regan. Regan's not going to just roll over and give this position up. He is going to fight tooth and nail, as any competitive sim racing driver would, as they go side by side down into turn 4. And wow, oh, this is definitely keeping us on our toes. Then the clock timer has now run out, so we're just waiting for Aaron Walker to cross the line. He's just coming out of turn 13 as we speak, so he's going to be coming onto the main straight. So this is definitely the final lap. As we just see Aaron coming across the line for a very, very commanding win of round 1 of the new GT4 Season 3 Championship. Andrew Richardson coming across in P2. They're definitely going to have his work cut out for him this season, I think, as newcomer Leon Hope for Gridfinder Racing brings that number 12 Audi across the line into P4. Into P3, sorry, and then when we come back on board, and we've got a photo finish, and it looks like Regan has just pit Sam to the line by 0.02 of a second. Oh my god. Wow. I think,
yeah, that's a good point. I wonder if Sam ran out of fuel, because I did see his car starting to jerk backwards and forwards as if it was running low on fuel.
Yeah, I mean he's still running, you know, and I would have thought if he hadn't run out of fuel, he would have stopped the car pretty much as soon as he crossed the line. So I'm not sure if that's then the case, but wow, an absolute photo finish for P4, 2/100ths of a second. Wow, that's that is a interesting finish to the race. Fantastic driving up and down then the grid. What an opening to season 3. Wow.
Yeah, that was a fantastic race, and great racing throughout the field, and that battle between Regan Mitchell and Sam Spenkelink was absolutely fantastic as well, and going right down to the last lap, and they pretty much that battle got sorted out at the line, and with Sam just missing out in 4th place, just having a quick look at Sam's point of view, but as what's on his live stream, and he still had about 1 lap of fuel left. So I wonder if he maybe just got a bad exit, or just went a little bit too defensive.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to find out what transpired there. Gonna have to go and have a bit of a chat with Regan and Sem in the Discord later on, just to get the inside scoop on what happened there. But we're going to be going into our podium interviews shortly. So just before we dive into that, just waiting for Leon to come into the interview waiting room. If you could pick a single highlight from that absolute amazing race, Ryan, what would it be? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Highlight of the race, I think there was so much good racing going on throughout the field. It's difficult to choose, but I think for me that battle after the pit stop between Regan Mitchell and Sam Svenkel, I think just pretty much I wasn't sure if Sam would be able to close that gap back down to Regan, but somehow he managed to close that gap back down, and I think he done an amazing job by. They had so many good drives throughout the field. I think if there was a driver of the race I was to pick, I would probably pick Liam Hope, because he done a great job in the first stint. Hope withstanding that pressure from Sam and Regan, and managed to just pretty much pull away after the pit stop, and they just take a well-deserved podium.
Yeah, I gotta completely agree with you there. Leon very, very quietly, calmly, just hanging on to that P3 position. So, really, really great introduction great introduction to Leon to the SSRI community. But let's bring Aaron and Andrew into the commentary box and get some first-hand commentary. Aaron, congratulations on taking that inaugural P1 victory for the first round of the season. First of all, how was your off season? What did you do? Were you doing any racing, or did you give yourself a break?
Thank you, Sam. No, I gave myself a break. In fact, I really didn't do a great deal at all, if I'm totally honest. I didn't turn the PC on until a couple of weeks ago, just to pick the KTM really, and then I started practicing properly today. I really like Hungaroring. I did, but I'm not being big-headed. I do know Hungaroring very well, so I didn't think I needed to practice too much. The KTM is a very good car here, so I spent all day practicing. So I've done a lot of laps.
Right, because we were actually mentioning this and up at the top of the program that looking at the official practice laps, so from the SSRI public practice server, we noticed that you only put in 12 laps, but right bang up at the top of the timing charts. And I've got to say, your qualifying lap was quite a quick lap. So in addition to the laps that you did in the server, it sounds like you have done quite a few offline laps today leading up to today's race.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's not the fastest lap I've done today, but it was a very good lap. Andrew, I don't know where he pulled that lap from. I hadn't seen him do. I thought I had a nice little buffer, but when he put that lap in, I knew the race was going to be a bit tougher than I expected. That was a good lap from Andrew.
So then you mentioned that this is an Hungaroring, and a track that you know very well and that you enjoy. What about the rest of the tracks in the rest of the upcoming season? So specifically on Oulton Park, out for our next round in a couple of weeks. Are you an Oulton Park fan, or are you not quite so much a fan of the British tight tracks?
I think we're going from one end of the scale to the other. I know Hungaroring very well. I know which corners are coming next at Oulton Park, but that's about it. But I'll stick some laps in. I've got 2 weeks. Hopefully, I can get used to it.
Right. So, thank you for really, really great racing. Congratulations on your P1, and look forward to seeing you out at Oulton Park in a fortnight's time.
And thank you to you guys as always. You do a great job.
Thank you. And Andrew, how was your off season? Did you give yourself some space to celebrate, or have you been racing throughout the Christmas period?
Good evening. I haven't really had much time off. I haven't driven much GT4. I've been doing all sorts of races here and there, but not a lot of GT4.
Okay. So how much practice did you get in before tonight's race?
I've done a few hours here and there before today, and then I did a half an hour to an hour sort of before the server opened this evening. Certainly more than Aaron, sure I could just turn the PC on today and be as quick as him. But...
I think we all could, wouldn't we?
Yeah, that would be nice, but no, fair play to Aaron today. I had nothing for him, no answer for him in the race. He says I got pulled out a good lap in qualifying. I don't know where that came from. I thought it was going to be about half a second off. My quickest lap up until quali had been a 0.7, and I've managed a lot quicker, so I was quite happy with that.
So then this is a little bit of a difference to how you started last season. Are you expecting this season to be a little bit more of a challenge than last season was?
Yeah, I think with the change in the balance of performance that we've had, obviously the Porsche's been made a bit slower, the KTM and some other cars have been made a little quicker, so it's going to bring it closer together, definitely. It sort of remains to be seen where all the cars lie on each track. Certainly, I don't know where they lie, someone else might have a better idea. But I'd be surprised if the Cayman wasn't still pretty competitive everywhere, to be honest. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll still be near the front, hopefully at the front, but we'll have to take each track as it comes.
Yeah, well, it's how then the balance of performance that plays out, is still to be seen. But one thing is for sure, it's definitely going to give us some interesting racing to watch. So with the track list for the upcoming season, and any tracks standing out as being ones that you're particularly looking forward to?
To be honest, apart from, as you've just said, Oulton's next, I can't really remember what's on the calendar, so it'll be a surprise. Let's go with that.
It'll be a surprise. Okay, so we've got some of the lesser the lesser utilized tracks. Obviously, we've got Oulton Park next. Snetterton's thrown in there, Laguna Seca. So in terms of an Oulton Park then being on our next round, is Oulton Park a track that you enjoy or are not very familiar with?
Sort of similar to Aaron, I'm not overly familiar with it. I've probably only done a handful of laps around there. I know taming the curbs is quite important, but apart from that, I don't really know. I'll have to get some practice in over the next couple of weeks and see where we stack up in 2 weeks' time.
So it sounds like you're going to leave us guessing to see what we're going to see next week.
Unfortunately, I have to because I'm guessing myself.
Well, it's great to have you back in the season, Andrew, and looking forward to some more battling between yourself and Aaron through the rest of the upcoming races. But thank you very much for coming in and having a chat with us, and look forward to seeing you at Oulton Park in 2 weeks' time.
Cheers, Sam. It's lovely to be back, and I just want to say it's so nice to see some new names on the grid as well as our regulars. It's good to see.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So, Ryan, race 1 down, 6 more to go. After this race, I don't know about you, but I am absolutely looking forward to the rest of the season to see just how close this battle is going to get.
Absolutely, I think it's going to be a it's going to be a great close season. I think there's plenty of. It's good to see the usual drivers back for another season. It's good to, like Andrew said, it's good to see new drivers in the series as well. And I think you'll see the usual people challenging for the championship with Aaron Walker and Andrew Richardson. I think being the main contenders, but I think there could be some dark horses in the series as well. With you've got Liam Hope finishing third tonight, giving a good counter for himself, and also you've got Sam Spenkelink and Regan Mitchell waiting in the wings as well to maybe try and pick up maybe the odd win this season if anything happens up at the front with the usual drivers. Just a great racing throughout the field tonight, and I think it's a good preview for the rest of the season.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's from what we've seen tonight, I think it isn't going to be a case of say same thing race in race out. I think there's going to be a lot of variety, a lot of excitement. I think some tracks are going to suit some drivers better than others, and especially considering a lot of the tracks that are on the calendar are those lesser known tracks, the ones that people don't race at quite as often, but mixed in there you've got some proper old-fashioned favorites, particularly in Barcelona and Imola, that just everyone loves racing at. So and I think there's there's just so much to look forward to for this coming season, and far too early to predict anything of what's going to happen in the upcoming races.
Yeah, indeed. I think I'm looking forward to the next round at Oulton Park. It's another one of my favourite tracks, and I think the tight confines of that track. I think it's going to be an interesting race, and it should be a close race. And definitely, I think it's going to be a race of just survival.
Yeah, so as Andrew mentioned in his interview, how cars handle the curbs, I think is going to be very, very important for that next round out. So potentially drivers spending a little bit more time on setups, getting cars to be able to handle those curbs and not get quite as upset by them. But likewise, if you end up being on the wrong side of those curbs, there's also the potential for a lot of track limits and infringements as well. So I think 2 weeks time is going to be very, very interesting race. So I hope everyone in YouTube land can come and join us. That's February 21st. So if you are in on YouTube, be sure to give Simsport Racing International a subscribe. Click that bell icon so that you get all of the notifications. Don't forget to give us a like, and we look forward to seeing you 2 weeks time at Oulton Park for GT4. I believe our next stream will be the GT3 season. I believe that's correct, at Brands Hatch on the 14th. I don't think we've got anything in between, do we? Right, so I've just been informed we've got a race room race coming up on Thursday on the stream as well, so be sure to join us for that. In the meantime, I've been Sam Pierce, joined with Ryan Walker. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good night, and we will see you next week.